How many property sales have been completed through the Right to Buy Social Mobility Fund since the scheme started in 2015?
Thank you, Councillor Raker. There are two important points to know regarding the Social Mobility Fund. First and most important is that the Tory government pulled the plug on it early this year. Second, I am sorry to say this, is that the housing team didn't cover themselves in glory. A proposal which may have benefited some tenants was not simply implemented quick enough to overcome the government's U-turn. As Councillor Aker is no doubt aware, earlier this year the government announced it was stopping the scheme early, having originally said that the Social Mobility Fund would be available until the end of the next financial year, the 31st of January 2017. They have now said that it will close next Thursday, the 31st of March. For those who don't know or can't remember what the social mobility was, the government invited councils to submit bids for a local scheme with a one-off payment of up to £20,000 to allow eligible tenants to buy a home on the market in place of their right to buy discount. It meant tenants would have an extra option when trying to get on the property ladder. Instead of the right to buy, they could take a £20,000 deposit, half from the government and half from us, and buy a home on the open market, meaning that the council home would be made available for people on the waiting list. It seems a trifle unfair, doesn't it? Getting people's hopes up and then dashing them like that with little or no time to complete their purchase. However, I can say that while nobody has yet been in a position to complete their property purchase, one applicant is at a very advanced stage and will very likely complete before next Thursday's deadline. And while Councillor Aker will no doubt concentrate on the negatives, and I await his follow-up questions with interest, I do want to say that because we believe the government was wrong, we have agreed to step in and help those applicants who cannot meet the government's deadline, but who are already in our system. Because the government will no longer fulfil its promise to fund half of the £20,000, we will step in and fund the whole amount to allow those sales to go through. A letter has been sent to each of these residents to advise of this, and follow-up telephone calls have been made. A promise is a promise, and while the government may feel it's okay to break people's hearts and hopes in this sly and devious way, we do not, and I intend to ensure that we will honour the promise we made to our tenants. Obviously, we cannot take on any new applicants or help those who were just thinking about doing it, but we will not allow the families who have gone through all the trauma and trouble of trying to buy a home to be left in the lurch.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Councillor Aker, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
I do, and first of all I'd like to thank Councillor Warren for answering my third question, along with the first. Having made investigations, I've discovered that despite being in a position to set up the scheme from July 2015, not a single application was processed until the 28th of January 2016. Why?
I think that I simply answered this in the first question, but let me go back over it. The Tory government pulled the plug and left us with unrealistic timescales. Long gone are the days when we had the money to employ specific teams for projects. But we will step in and support those let down by the Tories. All those that were in the process have a letter and a telephone call from the Housing Department. We will give them an extra 4 months to complete the process. If their purchase falls out of this timescale, we will support them on an individual basis. Nobody that is in the process will be let down. I made a promise and I keep all of my promises. So while I accept that officers could have acted more quickly, we must not lose sight of the fact that the problem is down to the Tory government scrapping the scheme. They may be ready to abandon these people, but I won't. And let's be clear what the role of the portfolio holder is. I take a report to Cabinet and it's passed by Cabinet. It then turns into that it needs to be implemented by officers. The day I found out that the government had pulled this, I met with officers. I also met with the leader, I've met with the chief exec, I've met with the head of housing, and we got the financial agreement that we would not leave these people in the lurch. We had the money put by through the HRA, and that is the role of a portfolio holder, to act when something goes wrong. I'm not an officer, I'm not in here working day in, day out, but when something goes wrong, I make sure that I don't sit on it. There ain't no way I'm sitting on anything. So I find it really hypocritical of Councillor Acre to try to play politics with this issue. These are people's hopes that he was playing with. If he gave a damn about these people, he would have raised this with me weeks and weeks and weeks ago. We could have worked together to reassure these residents. Instead, he has waited until this evening, treating these people like little pawns in his game.
Thank you, moving on.
Thanks.
Excuse
Excuse me, I believe I have one last question.
Oh. Would you like to pose a second supplement?
I would love to. Thank you very much.
Can I just say that the people in the public gallery would like respect for the meeting that's going on here, whether you agree with it or not, otherwise I will have you evicted from the room. Thank you. Councillor Acre, please.
Well, I'll take no lessons on playing politics. It's quite something to tell people not to have a right to buy and then buy your own right to buy. But let's talk about chronology. Let's talk about chronology. She can dish it, she can take this one. I know she's
Excuse me, sit back down for a minute, please. We are here tonight to represent the people of Thurrock, and I will not have ramblings going across. I started the meeting saying that I'm not going to have you talking across and rambling, and I won't have it. I will expect respect for each councillor that's in here, otherwise I will stop the meeting. Thank you. Councillor Acre, you'd like to continue, but I would like you to show a little bit of respect. Thank you.
A bit of chronology for the portfolio holder. The scheme was set up in July 2015, and it was announced that it was going to conclude on January 2016. The first process was the 28th of January 2016, a week after the government announced it was being suspended. What oversight and what did you do trying to be seen that these people could get their homes purchased through this scheme? It's all well and good blaming the government for this, but there was a 6-month window to see that a process was in place to get this policy sorted.
Councillor Warrell, please.
Look, I'm not going to go over all that's happened, you know. He's had the report, he knows what the report is, he's picked out the bits that he wants to. But let's just say that what he did was, this wasn't about social mobility tonight, this was about him raising my personal life in this chamber again.
Thank you, Councillor Warrell.
Thank you, I need to go on, so thank you. I don't think that he realises the difference in different politics.
Excuse me, Councillor White, please. I'm not having it.
What I've come to realise in this chamber is that there is different sort of politicians in this chamber, and there is some politicians that will do anything to get a headline or a newspaper article. Some politicians enter this chamber to be good councillors, and I've been in this chamber for 8 years, and I'd like to think that I've got respect in this chamber, and to have my life put over this chamber by the same person twice is just not the right principle that this chamber should be going by. But Councillor Acre, there's another sort of politician, and that is one that enters this chamber as a stepping stone just to become an MP. And that is the difference between us, and you have demonstrated that that is your stepping stone here from last year.
Councillor Warrell, please.
I think I will sum up, Madam Mayor, but I'm sure that for him to be questioning me and my morality in this chamber, I've stood really firm on why I am a councillor, and I do consider my position as a councillor, as I'm sure Councillor Acre has to in his time too. And just last week, Councillor, Madam Mayor, I was asked to reconsider my position again. Just last week. The last time I was with members of the UKIP group, who asked me to leave the Labour Party and go to be with UKIP. Why? Because they like my stewardship. Because I led this chamber in housing. So that no way that I will leave the Labour Party and go to UKIP. Why? Because I would never be part of a group that where